Hey everyone, it's Norm from Tested, and today I'm going to be reviewing this guy, the Bambu Lab A1 Mini, the new 3D printer from Bambu Labs, an FDM printer that was kind of a surprise to us when they announced it this week. It's an entry-level printer that lives alongside the P-series line of printers as well as the X1C, and as you can see, a new design for Bambu Labs going as opposed to a Core XY enclosed device. We're now a bed slinger. Again, this is a cantilevered bed slinger on linear rails that inherits a lot of the features of Bambu Labs' existing line of printers, has some new features as well, and does things a little bit differently. It's a really interesting printer, a really compelling price point, and let's dive right in. So Bambu's approach to this is to try to really come in and take over the entry-level market, where people normally would be looking at printers like Prusa's Mini Plus. Actually has the same bed size. When you're looking at printers, this is 180 millimeters by 180 millimeters by 180 millimeters, so 7-inch cubed, compared to the 10-inch cube design, bed size design of the higher-end P1P, P1S, and X1C printers. Not only is bed size different, that's also now being printed on this bed slinger design using some of Bambu Labs' own calibration secret sauce. So this does have input shaping, and that's the calibration that it does to test the vibration of its motors to compensate for that as it's printing, so you get travel speeds of up to 500 millimeters per second. That is the same travel speed and print speeds at max as the higher end Bambu Lab printers. The only difference here is that the acceleration is about half as fast. And we'll talk about performance and those print speeds in just a little bit. In addition to that input shape and calibration, when you get this out of the box, and this is a really simple setup, you're getting this connected to the new AMS multi-material system, plugging in the Bowden tubes, just doing in a little few bolts here and there, and you're printing in about half an hour or so. It also runs through a audio calibration. So this is something new to the A1 Mini, new to the Bambu Lab line of printers. It will run through motors, vibrate the motors, and go through its humming different frequencies. And so the songs that you hear 3D printers sing all the way back to the MakerBot days, that is muted significantly with the audio compensation of the A1 Mini, which is the reason I'm shooting this review while it's running this print right now. Because as it's printing, it actually is pretty quiet. Not whisper quiet, but it's been surprising to everyone I've shown this printer to that when it's running through its prints, it actually is, it feels like the sound is dampened. Now you're still going to hear sounds like the fan. You can hear that spinning up right now, and there are two fans here, one to cool the heatsink and one on the bottom right here to cool the filament as it's coming out, because when you're pushing the filament through this and you're running the hot end at those travel speeds of 500 millimeters per second, at those print infill speeds of 300 millimeters per second, you're going to need to cool the printer, to cool the hot end. The fan is actually the loudest part, I think, of this printer design. The printer does inherit, though, a lot of the other features that I've come to really love from the Bambu line of printers, including the Bambu Slicer software, the Bambu Handy app to remotely monitor your printers, and you can monitor it with a webcam as well. There is actually a small little webcam right there next to the light. And if you want that webcam off, you actually flip a privacy screen over to physically block the camera. But I've been leaving it on to run the time-lapse camera as well as to remotely monitor it. The difference here being that because of the, I think the processing speed, the processor they chose for this printer, the footage is very low frame rate, very low refresh rate. Even with the best Wi-Fi connection, and this is a Wi-Fi connected printer, no Ethernet connection, I'm getting about 1 frame a second of a live view on the prints here. And I think the angle here they have with the light isn't necessarily the most beautiful time-lapse imagery, for example. It's serviceable for looking at the prints, checking out there at about 1 frame per second, but not as responsive as watching the live view on other cameras, even like the printer I recently tested, the Creality K1 Max webcam was the most responsive, the best webcam I've seen so far in a 3D printer. Interface-wise, there's a touchscreen, smaller touchscreen in the front, and here is another place where I think it's serviceable. It has all the functionality that you would expect from that interface in terms of browsing a library of pre-sliced files that you have, or sliced files that you transferred over Bambu Studio. You can run through your setup, connect it over Wi-Fi with a touchscreen. You can calibrate, move XYZ axis. But I did find not only is that touchscreen a little small, but also it's not as responsive as I would like. The touch points weren't exactly where I thought when I tapped the screen it would be. There's a setting here as you're choosing, for example, a multi-material print, which spool you want to assign to each color in that multi-material print. And tapping those numbers I thought to be just imprecise on the touchscreen. So primarily I'm using the Bambu Handy app to make those assignments, or use Bambu Studio on my desktop. In terms of performance, the slicer profiles actually have this moving at exactly the same travel speeds as on the X1C. So if I'm slicing at 0.16 millimeters thickness on the 0.4 millimeter hot end here, you're going to get infill print speeds at 300 millimeters per second, travel speeds 500 millimeters per second. The only speed difference is that acceleration, here capped out about 6,000 millimeters per second. And that means that when you're doing a single color print, for example, a 7-hour print is going to take longer by about 15% on the A1 Mini. So a 7-hour print on the X1C takes about 8 hours on the A1 Mini, although the print quality is very comparable. I've done a few A/B tests printing the exact same model, the exact same filament, exact same settings on both the A1 Mini and the higher end printers, and they look almost indistinguishable. People can't tell the difference between them. I mean, if I look really closely, I actually think that I get less horizontal banding on the prints on the A1 Mini than on the X1C, and so it is a really, really nice quality prints that you get from here. And the 7-inch bed size is limiting and also not super limiting. I mean, it is limiting this point that in the sense that the area that you're going to print, if you're printing a ton of objects, if you're doing a lot of stacked objects, and with the updated software recently, many objects on a print bed are printing more reliably, because if you do have a failure, you can actually pause your prints and select objects within a bed to say, don't print that one failed object, continue on the rest. Your 7-inch print bed is going to be just not as expansive, right? But in terms of individual single objects, I was pretty surprised by just the size of things I could get. So, for example, this Flexi Jabla Hut printed diagonally fit perfectly here on the print bed. You can do your classic, your bust from Photosmint at 100% size, print no problem. And then you can even do large objects like half mask. So this lovely wolf mask, I downloaded and have a link to all of these models in the description below. I only had to scale down to 90% to have it fit, again, diagonally with supports even, and perfect, just in time for Halloween. Actually, a pretty impressively sized objects. You can do, hand props. If you have large objects that you have split down into multiple components, that's going to print just fine on the A1 here. One stress test I love doing, and this is a lovely design from 3D Print Bunny, is this kind of floating stringing design. So this rain diorama scene was printed flat like this, and it's really impressive how when you see the single strand of filament being moved across this gap here, basically it is an overhang. It's being bound on one side and then stretched and cooled in real time as it's printing, and then locked in on the other side. When that's done, this print had very few droops and everything printed perfectly, no supports, a testament to just the consistency of this printer compared to its older siblings, the P1P, the P1S, and the X1C. But multi-material printing, that's really something that they're pushing hard. That's why they've designed this new AMS light system, this automatic material switching system, which is kind of a unique design. It's unlike the A1, it's not enclosed, and it's here that the print speeds are actually faster on the A1 Mini with the AMS light than on the X1C with the standard AMS. That's because of this 4 Bowden tube system that goes all the way up to the extruder, unlike in the previous AMS, when you're switching between colors, you're not having to retract a filament all the way back to the AMS. Here, they're basically preloaded, queued up. You can see the colors right up to here, and then the motorized spools feed them in. They're 4 individually motorized spools, which also are calibrated with your slice file, so it's not dragging on the spool either. I really like that functionality. It's pushing the filament as the gears here are also pulling the filament. It knows exactly how much it's needed per layer. And multi-material printing does take a long time. So when you're talking about like a full day print, a 15-hour print here would take 18 hours sliced exactly the same way. On the X1C, a full day print, you can get 4 to 5 hours of time difference, again, depending on how many color switches you have. And those color switches are both the magic as well as the, well, burden and the curse of multi-material printing as it's implemented here. The way multi-material works is that when you slice the file, you're basically you're turning one object into multiple objects, and the slicer knows that per layer you may have, for example, 2 colors or 3 colors. And so with each layer, it'll first print one single color, then here it will then retract, it'll actually push the filament cutter into this pin here to cut the filament. It will send the new filament into the hot end to purge it, and then you get a pile of poop, a pile of purge, in addition to a purge tower that you have, a wipe tower that you have to create that's the same height as your print, as long as you're doing multi-material. So you can see for this 3-color print, you have the black on the bottom, then the orange, the mix of orange, black, and white, and then as you're nearing the top of this, just that orange and white, because it's doing that multi-material. And that's pretty wasteful, honestly. Now, these coils, it's not like solid, because it's a lot of air in these coils, but it is a lot of wasted filament that you can't repurpose here or in that wipe tower. And the way this printer is designed, you can see it kind of drop kick and kick out that filament. It's not as elegant as in the enclosed poop chute system of the previous printers, where people design all type of waste bins that you can catch this purge filament. Here, the purge kicks out. You can see as it's been printing over almost 15 hours now, it's basically about a foot diameter of where that may land. It's actually not very consistent where that filament may land. It kind of piles up. I've seen some of this purge filament get knocked onto the build plate in random spots on the table and even on the floor. So I'll be really curious to see what the community comes up with in terms of designs for catches for the purge filament to make this whole print setup a little bit neater and a little less messy. Because one of the things Bambu Lab is touting with this printer is just its small footprint, that it can live anywhere. Their marketing materials say the A1 Mini, it has a footprint smaller than that of a A4 sheet of paper, and technically that's true. The amount of contact where this sits on a table is smaller than that of an A4 sheet of paper, but its cantilever design, where the build plate actually pushes out to the front and the back, does make it pretty sizable, the volume it takes up. And if you're running it with the AMS light, because of the length of the Bowden tubes they give you, it actually takes up a fair amount of space. The AMS light does not, you can't have it set on top of the printer, on top of the enclosure, like you would with the P1P, the P1S, and the X1C. So while it's compact as a printer itself and compact in its print bed, it is something you're going to dedicate a shelf or a table to, and also for all this waste material here. The AMS Lite is only compatible with the A1 Mini, and you can't chain multiple ones together. So as of right now, that's your only system. You can't use this with the X1C. You can't use that AMS with here. And they're only selling this as a bundle. So it's $460 for both the A1 Mini plus the AMS Lite. In the future, they will sell them separately, but that will be more expensive. $300 for the A1 Mini and $250 for the AMS Lite. So better as a bundle if you're into multi-material printing, or for me, just having the convenience, I think, of being able to not have to swap out for spools that you're using right now, whether you have your marble, your sparkle, your matte, your basic, having those just queued up and ready to choose in your slicer, your favorite colors. That's the way I've been using the AMS, as opposed to doing a lot of multi-material color prints. And in terms of material, it will do mostly the same materials that you can do on your Bambu Labs, your PLA. It will do. It will even do your TPU. What it won't do with the built-in nozzle that comes with is that because it's not a hardened nozzle, it won't do your carbon fiber laced filaments, and because it's not an enclosed system here, no temperature control that you have. It's not meant for ABS printing either. They will sell, though, and this is something that's really neat, swappable hot ends that are super easy to swap. So a feature here that was unique to this design that I hope gets inherited or passed on to future designs, whether it's in this line or the higher end lines, is a dead simple way to swap out the hot end. You just remove the front panel. There is a latch, a metal latch that you unclip, and once you remove that rubber protection around the hot end there, you can easily grab the heat sink and pull that out and put in a 0.2, a 0.6, 0.8 millimeter hot end, or a hardened steel 0.4 millimeter that they will sell at reasonable price. All the parts that they sell so far have been pretty reasonably priced in the Bambu Lab store. But you're locked into their parts, their ecosystem, of course, and that includes down to their cloud software and their apps. So the way you send the prints is through the cloud. You can use the micro SD card, as I mentioned, but mostly you're using their app, the Bambu Handy app. And something they're launching in beta right now is their version of printables, or Thingiverse. It's their own repository of models that they're calling Maker World. So they're working with 3D modelers, a lot of the same modelers, some of my favorite designers that I've seen on other repositories, to upload their designs to Maker World and have them have profiles for those models so that they'll be instantly selectable and configurable to a certain extent to print on the Bambu Lab family of printers. So, for example, you can browse a model and say, I want to print it on the A1 or the X1C, and there are going to be some presets for layer height. So for the A1, they might have a 0.2 millimeter preset. For the X1C, they may have a few other options. You won't be able to manually change the layer height. Once you select that, you'll be able to select the type of material you want for your printers, assign colors in your AMS, use some material, your generic material profiles, and then directly from the app send it to your printer, as long as your print bed is clear, of course. And I really enjoy using that system. I wish there was more configurability in the settings. I know something like the Creality Cloud app actually has a full cloud slicer built in, so you can scale objects, you can duplicate objects, you can adjust all the settings that you would normally on the desktop slicer, and I want to see that functionality. I think it's a logical next step for that functionality to make it to Maker World and Bambu Handy, so I can select models I want and actually tune things like ironing, supports, scaling, all that stuff I would normally be doing on the desktop. I want that on the go. That would be a really nice and convenient feature. Something they're also doing is they're bundling some kits. So I'm not sure if this is like a product line that they'll be selling, or if they're just doing this as a bundle for these printers. But every one of these printers will come with a mystery kit where you can scan a QR code, which will then load your Maker World model and then send that print over. And in this case, it's a mouse kit, and so all the components to have work as an actual mouse for your PC is in the box here. Which is a nice idea. So there's another kit that's an LED lamp kit. So you can scan the code, print that out, and then fit in the lighting electronics that you get in the box. There are 2 other ones that also remain a mystery that I won't spoil for you. Something every A1 user also will get is this really nice lanyard that has your color swatches, not only colors but also material swatches. It's really nice add-on that they gave, and then 2 build plates. So a textured build plate, which is what I'm using here with PEI texture. It's their version 2, the gold one, as well as your smooth PEI plate, dual-sided, of course. And that's it for the A1 Mini. I mean, where it lives right now compared to other entry-level printers, this is kind of an unbeatable price at $300 for the printer itself, $460 with the multi-material AMS light option. It's still cheaper than the Prusa Mini Plus, which did just get a formal update for input shaping, so it had its speeds dramatically improved. You want to support that ecosystem. But for someone who might be looking for their first printer, may not need to print large objects or a lot of different objects, may not be doing batch manufacturing, this is, as a solo printer itself, half the price of that of its older sibling, of the P series. So you have in the family of the Bambu Labs lineup, you have a $300 printer, $600 printer, and a $1,200 printer on the X1C, which means there's a lot of options. I mean, would you get 1 A1 Mini, 2 A1 Minis for the price of 1 P1P, P1S, or 4 of these, which means you can do a lot of manufacturing if you're doing a lot of, if you're printing a lot of small objects for the price of what you get for 1 X1C. But if you want to print large objects, you want to print ABS, if you want the speed of the Core XY system, and that will also inherit over a firmware update the noise dampening of the A1 Mini, that is still an option. I know we're all still waiting for the larger printer, whatever that may be, but this is what they've announced this week, and it's kind of remarkable. It has really beautiful industrial design. The performance is stellar. Some design decisions I think that are interesting in terms of the footprint, the webcam, and things I think could be desired, like the interface, the touchscreen interface there. But as a first printer, I think they're going to sell a ton of these as an entry-level printer. If you have thoughts or comments about the A1 Mini, please leave them in the comments below. I've been loving using this for the past couple weeks. I don't think it'll be my primary printer. I'm still using the X1 as my primary printer, but there's a lot to love about the A1 Mini. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Norm from Tested, and I will see you next time when this print finishes. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching that video. Your support allows us to make more of this great content. If you'd like to help us on a deeper level even, head over to tested-store.com because we've got stickers. Who doesn't love stickers? Our anime-inspired Tested logo in Japanese. Follow the process, not the plan. It's not a process. It's not a problem to solve, it's a process to manage. Other aphorisms that have come from my mouth. And we have just made a full set of our demerit badges in sticker form. So you can cover your toolbox with all of your screw-ups and celebrate it with other makers. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.